We decided to pick Minecraft as the first game for our Play the Impossible, partly because we at Metaviews have been playing it and have our own Minecraft server that we've been building our own little fantasy world on. But we thought it was a good game to start with because there's more to the game than just playing it. There's certainly a phenomenon in terms of the YouTube videos that pretty much every day when you go on YouTube, some of the most popular videos are Minecraft. And it shows how video games are more than just entertainment. They're a culture. They're a way, especially for young people, but I obviously, by demonstrate here, young people of all ages, to use the cliche.
Playing Minecraft, I don't know, this is kind of weird game that like I dug a hole and I made a mine and like I built something, and people would like post their little photographs, and it was always like, these weren't people that were particularly like great at making things. They actually made extremely boring things, but they talked about how they would actually go on and they would tell their little story. Like, then you always hear the story of the first night, like, you know, you spawn in, you wonder what's going on, you chop a tree down, you make something, and then like you immediately get killed. And then the next day you wake up and then you realize, aha, now I have to actually like hide from things. So, you know, you spend your first night, you tunnel a little burrow a hole in a mountain or something like that, and then you hide and you sit there scared from the skeletons and the creepers and everything. And then finally in the day you go out, and we're in a world populated with no one else except chickens and cows and things that want to kill you. The great thing about Minecraft is the fact that it's actually just for yourself half the time. Like, you're really just doing it for yourself. You're doing it to build things for yourself. And he said, you know, when you ride that pig, when you build a saddle to ride on a pig, you are yourself and no one else, pig rider. I mean, it was kind of like, you're riding a pig for the sake of riding a pig. You're not riding a pig to like impress anyone or you know, complete a mission. You're just riding a pig, because why not?
I don't know why we keep on striving to make our games look as good as this. I suppose it's the freedom to be in a world that looks like your real world, but to do strange things like, you know, smash a car or steal a car kind of thing. But if you consider that some of the greatest entertainments ever produced by humankind have been novels, and you have to use your own imagination. So the graphics being low end kind of involve your imagination more rather than spelling out what the game is actually doing in front of you, which I think is kind of important in some ways. In fact, I installed a texture pack from Minecraft, which makes it look a little bit more realistic, and I actually didn't like it. It lost some of the kind of fantastic magic, the cartoonishness to it, and it looks a little too realistic. You know, it looks nice for the first 3 minutes, but then you get used to it, right? Any really good graphics in a game, you're going to get used to maximum 2 weeks. If not a couple hours. It's the gameplay which is very important. The aspect of it that I really like is that you're kind of creating stuff for yourself or for the idea that others can find it, which I think has kind of got a much stronger permanence than any other game I've really played. I mean, as far as developing a new technique, say in NetHack, or a way to shoot someone, or a rocket jump in Quake or something like that, sure, that's a kind of like technology like, you know, apes figuring out how to trade the information on how to get ants out of a hole on a stick. But that doesn't, it's not really like a sculpture that you create. It's almost like art. It's almost, that's the one thing I really like about it. It's the one game that has really bridged the physical interaction in the game with kind of doing something for the sake of art. I made a little cabin in the forest. It would have been functional if it was just made square and out of blocks, but I actually spent the time to make it look nice. I don't even know why I did it. Just for myself, really. Which is the first game I've actually felt like there was enough permanence and enough chance that someone else could discover it that would actually be worth it. And I love that community aspect of it.
Create these like beautiful hyper-realistic environments with like, you know, the leaves falling and the wind blowing objects around, and missiles hit buildings and they crumble beautifully, and like, you know, a jet plane crashes and the explosion goes up, and it's just like, and it's gorgeous because you're just like, I get to actually play in this crazy world where these stupid things happen. But But what's funny is, like, if I play a game like that, I immediately forget about that realism, like the detail of the realism, within like 5 minutes, because I get caught up in the mechanics. And in the same way, this game conceded immediately, like, that, you know, the mechanics are actually probably the more important part, and then we can, like, stylistically, we can kind of create this, like, low resolution style of game. But that means that also you don't have to pour, you know, $500 million into building a video game anymore. You know, you don't have to have 250, 300 people all coding like a specific, like, you know, like designing entire characters, designing like vehicles, like, you know, with all perfect kind of representations. Like you can, you know, instead have like 5 people make one game.
Probably the biggest part of the game is the creativity you can put inside of it. And it's almost like modern art in a sense, right? Because you can share it with other people, and you're not really limited, because the games nowadays, I mean, I guess it feel the niche Minecraft did, because the games nowadays, as you said, there's super good graphics, and it's sort of a world where like you can do whatever you want, but, right? And Minecraft is like, you actually can do whatever you want, right? It is modern art, and anyone can do it.
Simplicity, I think, is a model going forward, right? We've been laboring under this assumption that everything is more power, more graphics, more processors, more RAM, bigger, better, all this kind of thing, and we've kind of forgotten about the creativity that evolves out of incredibly simplistic platforms, right? Like, that's why, for me anyway, Twitter is always going to be more interesting than Facebook. On Facebook, you can do all this stuff, right? You can upload pictures, you can tag people, you can join groups, you can have conversations, you can post this, you can do all of this kind of stuff all within Facebook. On Twitter, you can mention other people and type 140 characters into a box. But the culture, the community, the creativity that exists on Twitter is way more interesting, way more fun, and ultimately way more useful than what you get in Facebook.
These are my kids, 14 and 9, and that's where I learned of Minecraft. And one of the first things that happened, so my son Andrew was playing on one of Reddit's servers and got banned for griefing. And so we were talking about it and poking around, and I realized that, oh, well, but the server component's totally free. You know, I have a handful of servers around the world, and so well, why don't I just make your own server? And then, of course, so we put up our own server where he and his friends can play. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, but I can't do all of these things. And that's where we discovered the whole like world of server modding, right? And some of the fascinating things, you know. So I think there's a couple interesting things with the model. One is that there's the sort of open nature of the servers, right? Like you pay to get the game and unlock sort of multiplayer mode, but then you can play on any server that's available, right? And has matching versions. And there's just enough modding allowed to let people do all kinds of crazy things and really make it their own. And so, yeah, in trying to research like what modifications Reddit was running so that I could build a server that somewhat matched it, you know, there's entire sort of communities, you know, the whole bucket community and all these sort of offshoots that are taking it and extending it to make it their own. So it's fascinating. Also, like instant Geek Dad win. Throwing up a Minecraft server.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about criticizing gamification as being very rigid in terms of what you want it to do versus play, which is open-ended. Like play by design. It doesn't have an end, doesn't have a purpose. You just do it. And I think that Minecraft teaches people how valuable such a game centered on play can be, when I would imagine traditional video game execs saying, no one will buy that, and no, that'll never be popular. And this finally does show that, on the contrary, it can be even more popular, which I think is pretty cool.
Minecraft doesn't emerge from a vacuum. It wasn't just Mojang had this brilliant idea and then it happened and then everybody bought it and he made $1 million. It emerges in a very specific community of practice in like the indie games community, and not even just the indie games community, but specifically the TIG source, the independent gaming source forums, where a bunch of people started playing this game called Infiniminer. Has anyone played or heard of Infiniminer?
But when I read about
Infiniminer is identical to Minecraft, except without any of the survival elements. It's basically like build mode in Minecraft, but with only four kinds of bricks or whatever. The graphics are identical. Everything about it looks like Minecraft. And people had set up this server, and people were playing it almost as kind of a B game. It was like, this game is so fucked up and weird, but we can all play together and we can build this stuff, and it's sort of this bizarre thing. And Mojang was one of those people who started playing it, along with all these other indie game developers who were incorporating various parts of this funny, bizarre little B game that they discovered into their own practice. And Mojang was the one who sort of said, no, you know what, I think I can make this game even better by adding more stuff. And that's when he started working on the beta, and then the beta came out and he started this model, and then, you know, eventually the Penny Arcade comic hit. and that broke it for the entire universe. But like, I think what's important about it is not that, oh, Mojang didn't invent Minecraft, because who cares? It doesn't matter that Mojang wasn't the solitary genius. What matters is that there was this fertile alternative community of practice around video games in which small download sizes, low-res graphics, open-ended gameplay, all of these ideas that inform Minecraft were circulating among many different people. And that's what produced Minecraft.